All right, what's good, guys? It's your boy No Name. We're doing a quick update on the character just because it's been a couple days and I've made some pretty meaningful changes, especially in a spot that I haven't actually talked about on here with the character, right? If you remember the initial theory craft for the LA Hit Wander, we talked a lot about how the end game was going to look and a good bit about how the early game was going to look. I didn't actually talk about the mid game. That's because I didn't really have a vision for how I was going to take the character into mid game, and I kind of needed to feel things out. Where I've landed is that the clear speed of Ellie Hit is lackluster. And I knew that this character was going to end up becoming a mapper because the single target requirements of new endgame content is actually extremely high, and I want to get my gear level up there before I try to attempt those bosses. So, what does that look like for us then? What that looks like is moving into Kinetic Blast. Yeah, that's why you're seeing KB on the screen behind me, right? You, Behind me, I'm not even up there. That's why you're seeing it on the screen even. But you'll see that KB just clears so much better than Elliot ever did. And so that's what we're going to be leaning our attention into when we talk about investing in the character. Playing KB. It's a good skill. So because of that, we have to make a couple changes around that, right? And let's run down the list of changes that were made because this character has gone through a lot of updates since we last talked. One, KB, which requires Thunder Fist as our new glove to give it a lot of flat damage to use with our Piscators, as well as we also changed into Replica Hiri's Ire and dropped our Grace Reservation for Anger to really amp it up, right? Really just lean into damage because I felt like I was overly invested in defenses. I was very tanky against most non-elemental damage, but I felt like we could use some offensive kick. Speaking of tankiness into non-elemental damage, if you want to get tankier against elemental damage, if you feel like that's the thing that you've been kind of struggling with, a recommendation that I have that I didn't make in my original video is to buy a Sapple's Frame. Sapple's Frame provides you with 4 max res, which will allow you to get a lot tankier into elemental damage. At least for early game purposes. I think there are better end game options, but early and mid game, it is a fantastic shield. Other things that we changed, right? Because we're leaning into damage, like really leaning into the damage side. That was big. We upgraded our amulet. I know in the original video I recommended that you start on a card chart and then you looking into Yoke or Replica Dragon's Fang as your big 2 endgame amulet options. So then anoint on 2. What I'm actually gone with, and what I probably will stick with based on the character direction change that I've ended up with, is Eternal Struggle. Eternal Struggle fixes our attributes like I wanted. It gives me a little bit more armor and evasion. It gives me Eldritch Implicit access, and it is a source of Culling Strike. 15% Cull is insane, you guys. So we're very, very happy to have that in the character as well. 100%. And that's actually going to be what I stick with, except for maybe like getting literally better ones. A better roll on my Eternal Damnation. Or not Eternal Damnation, Eternal Struggle. A lot of amulets out there. Additionally, we made a couple other just good changes here and there throughout the character, right? One, obviously we're on a 6 link now. If you're staying on the Ellie hit setup, by the way, if you keep staying on double Ellie hit rather, keep your 6 link as the clear skill. It just feels better. And then it'll also give you more raw single target when you gem swap barrage for bosses, if that's your prerogative. But we also just, got a 6 link. There is the upgrade into clusters. The large is the most important, and it's not because it's the most damage, it's because it opens up jewel sockets that we need in order to put in more damage, right? So the large is very important. Opportunistic Fusillade, with one of either Feed the Fury, Fuel the Fight, or Martial Prowess at the front. Very huge to keep us point efficient. Also, other things that came along with all of this, I added in Flask automation to the character. Capping my spell suppression was huge for survivability. I got Mark and hit back into the character by taking out faster attacks because I actually didn't need it in my shield charge anymore. I just have that much attack speed. And got some Eldritch Implicits, which if you're switching to KB, I would really heavily prioritize getting mana cost reduction on attacks on your helmet because KB is so expensive, right? So huge changes all there, and a couple other things. So if you're let's say assume that you're on my previous character state. Please do not be on that character state still at this point in the league unless you're freshly starting out recently, because that is terrible gear to have on. There's some very important upgrades that you could be making, and here's those upgrades in order for you, just in case before I get into like the nitty gritty details of some of the other stuff going on. You should get a 6 link. You should get more XP. You should get, again, Thunder Fist and the new Abyss Jewels. Remember, new Abyss Jewels are very important because previously the jewels I had in my last video were jewels for Ellie hit only, as they say, with fire skills and things like that on it. KB does not have elemental damage tags on it and therefore cannot benefit from those mods. And we need flat damage for KB anyways. So new jewels. Again, if you want to upgrade from Carnage Heart or Eternal Struggle, Yoke of Damnation, Yoke of Suffering, and our favorite Replica Dragon Fangs. I don't know why Damnation's on my mind. I guess I really just think about Eternal Damnation lately. Also, remember we swapped over to Replicate Kiri's Ira as our chest and dropping Grace for Anger, which still keeps our armor and evasion balanced out, so it's all fine for perseverance purposes. We're just leaning heavier into damage there. Get yourself some clusters, cap your suppression, right? Those are the big things. Now, with all of that said, I want to show you guys some of the nitty gritty for some of this stuff, as well as some things that I'm keeping my eyes on for the next stage of the character. All right, let's talk some specifics now. Level 95, very big deal. I still want 1 to 2 more levels, right? That's really big on the list of things that I want to do. As you see, I was in case I said, armor and evasion still balanced out, and we actually have good suppression now. The gear is all the stuff I talked about. There'll be a link in the description to both the POV of this character, but also if you want to look at my character on POV Ninja, so you can literally see the progression, day 2, day 3, day 4. This will be up there so you can see how we went along about my progression and getting improved in the character. Right now, what I want to talk about, some of the other detail oriented pieces. I'm not going to take this train. It's going to kill my soul because I've been wanting to sell that for a little bit. The important things here are the upgrades to the build, right? You can see Eternal Damnation or Eternal Struggle. I really have to stop thinking about this. The 2 amulets with Eternal in them are so both usable and very distracting in name. But the important thing here is this has exactly the stats that we wanted. If you remember why I picked Carnage Heart initially, it was for the huge amount of all attributes it provided. We get that here, but with a little more raw damage and stuff applied to it. And so I think it's a no-brainer for fixing the build up a little bit, right? Eldritch Implicits on the helmet. You'll be able to see all this gear that I think is very important for improving the character in the links down below, right? Now, the tree underwent some pretty substantial changes. Repathing, right? We're no longer, I think as I showed in the endgame POB originally, we're no longer pathing around near Gladiator's Perseverance to get to Burning Brutality for this Fire Mastery. We just have enough damage in the clusters that we no longer need to do this, and it makes our damage more consistent across the board. You also then, take in more liberties in how we're pathing. We're no longer running Ballista, so I don't have the totem nodes. The other big thing, I am not running Point Blank at the moment. If you want more raw single target, click Point Blank. I just do not need the raw single target, as that is not a part of what the character is supposed to be doing, and I have no problems killing my legions. Therefore, I do not need more single target. In fact, Point Blank made it harder to clear my legions because my KB would do negative damage. Also, if you do click Point Blank, consider taking returning projectiles off of your Ellie hit, as it counts the distance coming back continues to still count into the negative, and therefore you actually do not want returning procs for single target. You should run increased crit damage or something like that for bossing on your gem if you're still running Point Blank. Things like that are very important to keep in mind of, just weird little mechanical stuff. You can see the inspired learning in here, where a lethal pride could be as well for potential gear upgrade options. And then just generally the tree is a lot tighter than it used to be. That's really the nitty gritty of the character. I want to talk very quickly to you about where we're going to go from here then, right? Because I covered the upgrades themselves, and they're pretty straightforward upgrades. I just wanted to show you some of the other things that don't make sense to just talk about in a brief overview with some footage showing in the background. Now, I want to talk about things that we're going to do. I want a Dying Sun, but I need to make sure that I can sustain not having a Mana Flash before I do that. Most maps I can, but having the Mana Flash allows me to run no regen maps, for example, much more comfortably. I should have do not run cannot leech maps, as it breaks my character anyways. So I probably should be fine to cut this, but it is comfy, especially on single targets. So I gotta see about that. Ancestral Vision, alongside a new shield that has the suffix chances to avoid elemental ailments, as I have 2 useless suffixes on here. Neither of the fire or lightning resistant suffixes on this shield are actually viable to me. And so if I can get cold res and ailment immunity or an ailment avoidance on here, I actually cap my ailment avoidance on the shield with then again Ancestral Vision to get some ailment avoidance based on suppression, and ailment immunity just feels incredible. It'll let me change pantheons. Because this right now is literally only freeze immune. The stun line doesn't matter. We're stun immune. We're champs. So Lunaris is where I want to go next, more than likely. Could also justify Stellaris, but that's more of a bossing thing. And our Akali is a very real contender, by the way, because fucking poison is terrifying. So a lot of options that I want to play around with there, but I have to get ailment immune first to do so. Then we get into some of the newer, more exciting stuff, right? So wands are on my mind because of some changes that are incoming. I just want to very quickly show you here. Well, the hardest thing to do is make one of these wands, right? I want just a wand with triple T3 because that's actually all it takes to compete with my damage. What in the world? Oh, right. Yeah, I have essence in here. I was like, why was this not letting me do it? I wanted to show you what it currently looks like to try to craft the wand, right? Just to hit like a good essence plus double T3 or higher, we're looking at 18,000 essences. 18,000, you guys. What am I supposed to do with that? The answer is nothing. That's way too fucking much. And it's because wands, unlike bows, if you're playing this on a bow, for example, you don't have all these stupid caster modifiers in the way. And so enter our savior. GDG announced a series of Necropolis buffs, and Necropolis can already do this, but the mechanic is too tedious to interact with, and also like trading straight up is not reliable for it because people aren't itemizing it due to the cost of itemizing them. So with changes to a lot of these things coming up, being the removal of the cost of itemization, as well as removing a lot of the bottom tier corpse options you can get, this mechanic is going to get a lot more benefit, a lot more easy to interact with, and therefore actually provide the value that it was designed to provide in the crafting space. So now, remember, we talked about over 100,000 opportunities before, right? We're going to optimize these corpses, and you're going to see that we're at a 1 in 8, every 8 attempts at getting all these corpses together. And these aren't current numbers, right? It could be with the new courses, or with current stuff, with like the tier modifiers being a little different. This might change even when we get access to the new corpses that combine the tier modifier rating corpses together, right? 1 in 8 chance to get a wand. Like, look, I clicked the sample wand, and now this is 6 mod. I'd have to annul probably, but like, look at that. That's an insane starting point. Generate again. This is also fine. We have a handful of ways to get wands that are very fine. And when I was clicking through, I found a couple wands where I was like, yeah, I would send an annul on this and then actually get to work. Like, here we go. Another triple prefix one that I'd want to send an annul on to get going, right? You win the 50-50, you have a banger wand. And this is just something fun to work towards. Piscasaurus is still perfectly fine, but you know, I like upgrades. So this being on the table is finally awesome. Other than that, we're also going to be looking at Shroud of the Lightless. I also have considered Crystallized Omniscience, but those do not exist really on trade at the moment due to the rarity of Uber bosses in general, and especially that amulet's natural rarity. So not really going to look at that too hard. And so we're going to look at Shroud as that was the original plan, and I think it'll give you more fun to crafting because I've already crafted Omni Gear in recent memory. Haven't done Shroud crafting recently, and so that's going to be some stuff to start looking into. If you're wondering, by the way, why the mid game of this character felt so rough, it's because of the cost around pseudo-linked gear. You actually cannot get pseudo-linked gear very easily at the moment due to the fact that corrupted essences are extremely expensive. And so, like, hopefully they start to come down. The essence changes really destabilized that market, and I was not properly accounting for that when thinking about how I'd go mid game initially. But we've made do without it. Also, getting our watch size would always be cool. Anyways, it's been a lot from me. I want to get back to blasting. I'm pretty sure you want to get back to blasting. Maybe you're blasting while watching this video, but I need to go get back to blasting. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them with me. If you want to see the character live or you want to ask questions to me while I'm streaming, I'll be streaming in the evenings for the most part. Link in the description for that. You can come by the Discord and bother me there as well if you need anything. Bother. It's not really a bother. I love you guys. Very much appreciate you guys actually keeping track of the character. It just feels good to be able to share the ideas that I cook up with for people. And so as long as you guys are rocking with it, I'll keep doing it. And, that's it from me. If you have any, questions, drop them in the comments. If you have suggestions for the character, also drop them in the comments. I actually do read through those to see if there's anything for me to do that could be better for the character. All that good stuff. Anyways, I'm out of here. It's time to go blast. Peace out, y'all.